Alright, hello, and welcome to another ranking video. I'm sure you are all familiar with the famous blue spiny mammal, and his nemesis, the egg-shaped mustache man. So quite simply, this is all the zones in Sonic 2, ranked from the stinkiest to the sexiest, based purely on my own opinions. So chances are you'll disagree, because everybody disagrees with everything I say on the internet. But that's okay, just don't shout at me, I'm very vulnerable. I already did a video on the first game, but it was shit, so I would not recommend it. Most zones in Sonic 2 are made up of 2 acts, unlike the first game where they were made up of 3. This will mean there is more zones to rank, but also some of them are very short, so I may not have a lot to say about every zone. With all that nonsense done, let's start the actual video before you all get very bored. So the weakest zone in my opinion is Oil Ocean Zone. Found near the end of the game, this oil refinery themed zone is a nightmare. Frustrating enemy types that pop out of nowhere, a very dull industrial feel, and the end boss is basically the same boss from Hilltop Zone. Thankfully though, you can land in the oil and survive. Had the oil been an instant death, I may have never made it out of this level as a child. This level also ranks very low in the soundtrack leaderboard. I'd say it's only better than one soundtrack in Sonic 2. I'm sorry if you love this zone, but it's just a bit shit. This may seem a bit unfair ranking this so low, as just like in the first game, you have a dedicated final boss zone. However, unlike in Sonic 1, this boss is certainly not a breeze. Firstly, you must defeat Mecha Sonic, who is easy enough once you work out his pattern, but there is quite a bit of trial and error. A fun boss though, followed by the Rotten Egg himself and his oversized Death Egg robot. This section is all about timing, which I have very little of. Knowing when to strike and being patient. Again, one of my weaknesses, I have no patience. A decent final boss, but hard to rank that high, as it is only a boss fight. Hilltop Zone struggles to get me excited. The game already starts off with Hemorrhoid Hill Zone. That's a new zone for Sonic, dearie me. No, it starts off with Emerald Hill Zone. How many grassy, hilly zones do you really need in a game? What makes this one stand out though is its lava rising showpieces. That is what elevates it from being bottom in this list. All of those sections are really exciting. The problem is, the soundtrack sounds like a wailing coyote in pain. And is by far my least favourite in the entire game, and potentially in the whole Sonic series. It's too similar in theming to Hemorrhoid Hill Zone to stand out. Also, why is there a checkpoint sign only seconds away from the end of Act 1? Are people really somehow dying between that checkpoint and the end of the level? Whenever I think about Sonic 2, this level is honestly one I always forget exists. Nothing about it is very memorable to me. It turns out hedgehogs can fly. A very different zone to any other in this game. The whole level takes place on top of Sonic's tornado plane, piloted by his good friend Tails. I always found this level rather relaxing. a very different turn of pace compared to the rest of the game. It also is one of the few zones which only has one part, but certainly a very memorable level at the very least. As you can tell by the name, this level is themed around water, a theme that sends shivers down the spine of any gamer. But unlike the horrible labyrinth zone in Sonic 1, there are paths you can take where you can avoid touching any water. I'd almost try and play this level like the water was lava. If I could get through it as dry as my mum's sponge cake, then I know I have done a good job. However, if you do fall down into the aquatic depths, the level does become a bit of a slog. It's slow, it's meandering, there are many enemies that are almost unavoidable. This level always reminds me of Indiana Jones movies, escaping from arrows and stealing the rings from the ruins. Not a bad effort for a water level. The first zone in the game, and safely in the middle of the ranking. Nothing wrong with this level, but nothing that really stands out. As you'd expect from a first zone in the game. It's got the standard green fresh look, with not too much difficulty. It's always good fun to speed through both sections, plus there are plenty of hidden secrets to find along the way. A solid opening zone to the game. The level starts off with Tails unfortunately being shot out of the air. Well, it's unfortunate if you're a fan of Tails. If you dislike him, then it's great. I remember when me and my brother would play this co-op, I'd often be Tails, so when it got to this point in the game, suddenly I couldn't play anymore. Seems bizarre to have a co-op game where the second player just suddenly booted out the game for the last section. You get a really bombastic tune for this level, feels very cheesy, and I love it. The idea that you're climbing aboard Dr. Robotnik's airship is such a great concept for a level. Although I'm not a huge fan of the final boss, as you stand around waiting to jump into the flashy nipple. A zone made out of 3 acts? What is this, Sonic 1? I would say this is the hardest set of zones in the game, much harder than the later Wing Fortress and Sky Chase zones. It's got a real classic feel about it. I think it would suit Sonic 1 really well. It's almost like a remake of Scrap Brain Zone. It also has the most catchy soundtrack in the whole game. If it wasn't for the enemies in this zone, including crabs where you have to jump on a specific part to kill them, and the horrible praying mantis that throw their spikes, this could have challenged to be my favourite zone. The amount of times you'd get hit by either of those enemies without having much chance to avoid them is super frustrating. I can imagine this will top a lot of people's lists, but the top 3 is so good that it unfortunately only made it to number 3 for me. The second zone in the game, and one that is easily recognisable. It's super fast. So fast, sometimes the game actually struggles to keep up. There's many different paths you can take, and I'm still finding new secrets and paths to this day. The enemies never feel unfair or annoying. The boss is decent, if not a bit frustrating when you fall through the bottom of the map. However, it does have water, and we all know I do not like water sections. Trying to escape the purple chemical infested water was really frustrating. Playing it now though, I do wonder how I could have been so awful at the game, as this section is rather easy. Just such a classic zone, and you can see why it returned in so many other Sonic games. What can I say? I am a gambling addict. I can happily sit in this level and spend all my time on the fruit machines. I've honestly used up the 10-minute timer so many times because I just get carried away trying to win as many rings as possible. I would say this zone also has the best looking Robotnik machine. He really has pimped his ride. Something quite unusual about Casino Night is the lack of enemies. Excluding Spikes, there are not many enemies to be seen, making it quite a nice casual fun level to run through. The casino theming is very appealing and striking to the eyes. Just don't be like me in trying to chase the jackpot, because in the end it will be rigged with Robotnik spikes. So here we go. The number one zone in the game, in my opinion, is Mystic Caves. I'm not sure if this would be a popular number one, but let me know yours in the comments. For me, it has everything I want from a Sonic zone. Catchy music, check. Unique look, check. Fast and slow sections, check. Unique boss, check. There is almost nothing negative to say about this level. Well, apart from the Pit of Death. But if you can avoid the Pit of Death, then you'll have a great time. Come to the Mystic Caves for invincibility crates galore, big grassy dildos that try to penetrate you, and many fun and different areas to explore your way through the level. So there we go. That was all the zones in Sonic the Hedgehog 2, ranked from worst to best. What did you agree with and disagree with? What are your favourite zones? Feel free to post in the comments below. But for now, take care and leave me alone.